back to Ethereal Material, where the mystical meets the practical.
We are Carla and Priscilla, two professional mediums discussing the gap between the seen and the unseen.
And all topics are on the table for dissection. And today we're answering a listener's question about clients' mental health. So we got a email question from a listener, and you want to read it? You want me to?
I can read it. Did you ever have a client who seemed to have a bad psychological reaction to their reading, and what did you do? Now, there was more to that question. That's just the headline
That's
we're
right.
giving you. So I have an answer, but I'm going to let you go first.
I would say probably yes. Not too many of them, because I have more often than that had to like not take a client because I could tell that they weren't. I'm not talking about grief, but that they weren't like who have called me and said I'm possessed or something's following me around. I mean, I'm not here to say that that's happening or not happening. That is not my wheelhouse. And so I will just say, this is not my wheelhouse. And maybe you have a priest you can call or a therapist you can call. I used to have a few cards from therapists around. I don't anymore, where I could refer them to somebody and not just say, call 911 and hang up.
Right.
But there's never been a reading that I had to end because of it, but I have had both in psychic readings, which were more about insight about a person or a future, where a marriage was breaking down and my client was getting increasingly distressed because I was validating her understanding that her marriage was over. And she sort of flipped from, she said, I have a feeling that my husband is cheating. And, we have to be very careful with these types of things. Absolutely. So what I do is I say, what do you think? And then I tune in. And then I can say, ethically, I can say, I agree with you. I feel that there is infidelity here, or I do not agree with you. But I cannot have a client sit across from me and say, hey, you didn't bring it up, but your husband's cheating. Like, that is absolutely verboten. That is weird. If any psychic does that to you, pull the plug and run.
Yeah.
And she had the suspicion. I mean, she had evidence. And were they going to get back together, or was it going to end and they get back together? And I said, well, I told her what I saw, which was that there would be, there was a kind of real narcissistic sort of control personality issues with the spouse, and a lot of gaslighting going on. And I said, this can go on for a really long time. Eventually, you're going to pull the plug. And she got more and more upset. I don't think she was upset with me, but she got increasingly upset, but got very challenging to me. Like, so you're saying this? Why are you saying this? What would happen if this? And she got a little bit aggressive. And I had to say, look, this is a psychic reading. These are my impressions of the questions you're asking me. And maybe it's not, why don't we switch topics for a little while? Or maybe, because she kept asking me the same thing, expecting or hoping for a different answer. And I kept responding with what I was seeing. So she got very upset. And so we had to kind of talk. We ended well, but and then I've had clients who say, well, what should I do? We're not legally or ethically allowed to give advice. We're not therapists. So, I can't say the answer to that, but how about you?
Oh my gosh, mine are so much more dramatic than that.
Lucky you.
Well,
I don't want the drama.
But I have seen some stuff. First of all, I really mean this, and I've done it with myself. If you are going to a reading because you need to hear something, don't go to a reading.
Yeah.
Don't. End of story. Because if someone gives you something that you don't want to hear, and it's going to set you off psychologically, and listen, we've all been in positions where we wish we could hear, we're going to be fine and everything's going to work out. I get that. So I'm not knocking why one might feel that way. It's that if one reading is going to make or break your mental stability, please don't do it until you're ready, whether that's psychic or medium. Now, I have a bunch of stories where I actually had to be escorted out of a place a few times from aggressive people that I don't even know what to say. But on a lighter note, I was doing a mediumship reading and someone asked me to bring through a specific relative for them. And I did what I do. I've already had gotten 2 other people for her, did my validations. And she was able to validate, and it was not a young woman, this is a mature woman, respectful individual, and she was like, well, I don't know why this person's telling me that. I have no reason to speak to this person. It was a horrible relationship, and there was like a litany of like three things, but she had just said, can you get so and so?
Yeah.
So she said, and I said, but you just validated. So I did my job. We validated with 3 to 4 pieces of evidence who this is. And now you're telling me you have no reason to talk to them. I said, I disagree. Because I just asked you who you wanted to speak to. And I said it nicely. There was no problem. It was a very respectful thing. And I said, and you asked me for them specifically. And she paused. I said, so you actually do. I can stop. We do not need to continue with this person.
Right.
But it brought up old wounds that you could see somewhere in there. And I understand this needed to be healed. But as soon as the slightest thing happened, the old wound, the Band-Aid started to get ripped off. And that wasn't good. So I said, and she said, you're right. And she gave me the respect. She said, I did. You're right. I said, so we can stop. And she said she wanted me to stop, but she did ask me to clarify. So I went through this. I said, so I work for this gentleman too. So that's why here's the information. We stopped. But she handled it better than I had someone kick over a table. I had somebody get up and aggressively yell in my face. I mean, for
I've had a couple of those with
silly things. Like literally, you brought through my ex-girlfriend, and as I validated, they wanted more, and then all of a sudden, something flipped, and I don't want to talk to them. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, and one time, I saw this reading an individual. I saw flashes of cutting on skin. Do you remember this story? And I said to the individual, I'm seeing cutting on skin, like a cutter. I said, then, who, and it was a psychic feeling. I said, do you understand? Now, I did not know who it was. I just saw it. And she took a scarf off from her neck, and she had a slice across her neck. She had done the night before.
Oh boy.
Now, what do I do during this reading?
Right.
Fortunately, it was at a place where there were other people. It was early on in my career. It was not an individual. I mean, it was an individual reading, but and she had come in with a friend. So I kind of talked to her and said, I'm not going to charge you. I don't think this is a great time. And we got the friend, because I'm like responsible. What do I do? Like, this is dangerous.
Like, we're not really mandated reporters, but I guess we would.
Yeah. So I actually spoke to the people that were managing where I was and said, this is the situation. I didn't give them the details. I just said, I'm concerned. We can't have this on us. She may need help. She was there with a friend who showed up to pick her up. We told the friend, and then it was beyond us what happened, but we were like, suggested one must go to the ER right now, because it was also getting infected. It looked horrible.
Oh boy.
But she was very calm with me, but obviously anything I could have said could have been a trigger. So it is a little bit dicey. I like you. If someone needs what appears to be psychological help, I will turn down a reading. And say, I don't think we're a fit. It's nothing personal, but we're just not a fit.
And I have turned down clients after multiple readings too, if they have been. I worked with a woman years ago. We just did phone readings, never met in person, and her need became increasingly specific. She had been looking for a job and was wondering if she would find work in her industry. I think it was film, and where should I apply? Well, I can't tell you where. We're not allowed to give advice. We're not allowed. We're not career counselors or therapists. But I told her what I saw around a successful interview and offer, and I said I also feel like there is a review, or what do they call it? Not a performance review, a reference that I feel you should leave out, and I feel like you know who I'm talking about. And she said, you don't have to say anymore. I know exactly what you mean. And so that was one of our first ones. It was pretty healthy. It was good exchange of information. And then maybe a month later or 6 weeks later, she called me to say, look, I got this. And I did get the job, as you said, and we're going. And so now I think I want to prepare this way. So it was not advice given, but insight driven. But then apparently this earlier performance review from a previous boss, I guess, caught up with the new employer. And she called me, she's like, I really gotta talk to you, this is really bad, first of all, whenever I get that, like I
Yeah,
said,
it's
I'm not the
I
psychic
know,
emergency room, we
it's
have to make an
true.
appointment, because people
Nine
in
of
that, like,
10
this is
times.
not the, you're not in a position to receive
No.
insight in the way that it's offered if you are in a state of panic. So we waited a little bit, a day or two, and she was furious with me. She's like, I said, I saw this and I told you. She said, but you didn't tell me how bad it was. And, I'm going to sue you. And of course you can't. But, it was just, she was extremely upset with me. And I said, look, the whole point of a psychic reading is that you can see what some of the obstacles may be and get out ahead of them. It doesn't, things are not necessarily written in stone. So if you don't like the trajectory that I can see for you, or you don't like stumbling blocks along the way, preempt those. Say to the person who's hiring you, look, you may get a bad reference from me. Here's why. Don't wait for it to catch up. Like, she knew what I was talking about, but she didn't apparently want to do anything about it. And I had to end up blocking her, because
Wow.
even though she was really angry with me, wanted to sue me, then she wanted me to fix these other problems, that she was clearly a very unstable person, but it didn't come out for a couple of readings. I'm sure she really gave good sort of face at the beginning, and what sounds to me like, and it seems to me like, she could get herself hired, and then she got a little bit obsessive, or she got a little bit of something, and people realize, oh, she's not really very stable, we have to let her go. And I think there had been like a series of that. So I had to block her, and
That's a shame.
and tell her, I feel like you would really benefit from, you're so smart and you're clearly talented. I'm not qualified to walk you through some of these deeper issues, but I can see psychically that if you were to work through them, you could really put them behind you. And then I blocked her. So I don't know if she did or she didn't, but that's one of the. And then I had someone that came to me for hypnosis years ago, who also, went home, called me like 19 times the next day to say he was thinking about harming himself and his family. And I said, you need to hang up and call 911.
Yeah.
I need more hypnosis. I said, no, you do not.
Yeah, years ago in my career, I remember I did have I forgot this, of referrals that I would give to people and say, you
Yeah.
can contact this person and see that I'm not the person for you.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one, and I know that there are many intuitives that believe, I'm not telling you you're wrong, it's just not me. Then you give every single thing you get and that you're meant to give them. I disagree. I'm going to give you an example. Years ago, a woman whose husband had passed, she wanted me to connect to him, and she needed, from her perspective, to know if he had been unfaithful. She was convinced he was unfaithful, and she needed him to tell her this. Now, in our work, we are evidential-based mediums. The man is dead. Yeah, you might get evidence, but whatever I'm going to give you isn't evidence-based right now, because you don't know who this was or whatever. Admittedly, before she even asked me, when I scanned him, he showed me he was a little bit shady, and he definitely showed me that he was probably not completely faithful. And I remember clearly making the decision to not tell her. And I'm going to tell you why. How does that benefit her? The psychic told me my husband cheated on me. The man is dead. Yeah. I'm not doing that to a person. It benefits you zero. Right. Zero. So I didn't say, oh no, I don't think he cheated on you at all. I did not lie. I said to her, I feel something like, I don't remember the exact words, an uneasiness and a gray area around it, but fidelity could be emotional. It could be a phone call. It could be a flirtation. Right. I don't know. I'm not being shown full-blown affair, which I wasn't, but you could ascertain probably. Right. And because it wasn't going to help her. Yeah. So I didn't say, oh no, he was perfect. I didn't lie. But I really think there is an ethical obligation that we have as mediums and or intuitives to not screw somebody up.
I agree. And we also have to protect ourselves, like, if you give that information and she starts telling his family, your son was a real dirtbag, and the psychic told me, I mean, if, are we legally defaming someone? Can they then,
Well,
and
is
his
that a
estate
ripple
or his family
effect?
can come then sue us for something? You know, I think,
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
just, we have to be, you know, when you have a pregnant woman say, I miscarried before, am I
No.
gonna miscarry this baby? You know, we
Can't
don't
answer
put a
pregnancy
psychic in that
questions.
position.
And especially that opens up to the crooks out there to tell you who knows what, that, oh, you want to not miscarry this baby, you better come back to me.
Right,
I'm gonna whatever you
right.
for $500 and you're not gonna miscarry. It's a shame that people are in vulnerable positions. And I get that because when we are in grief, and grief is a different story. You're in grief, you've lost somebody, you want validation. I get that.
Yeah.
That's why you come to people like us. Try to avoid the answers to things that you don't need to hear. I don't know.
And many psychic, as we've talked about so often, many psychic impressions aren't understandable or
Right.
even relevant for a long time. Or, you know, you don't make the connection until after that time has passed. I had a client
That's
who
true.
called me 5 years after and she left me a message. I didn't get to talk to her. But she said, I remember you read me. You said I was going to be living on the coast of California with a view of an ocean with an Italian man. I was happily married at the time. And I thought, this psychic she
sucks.
She sucks. She's a total scam artist. And she called me laughing. She goes, I just remembered, I dug up the recording you made, and here I am married to somebody. He's an Italian American man, and he's an Italian, a naturalized American citizen. We live on the coast of California with the view of the ocean. And she's like, I never would have known. So, she was happily married when I did that reading for her. And I didn't see, oh, you're going to go through a punishing
Right.
divorce, you're going to fight, you're going to lose your money. I just saw this particular scene. And because it seemed benign, I told that to her. So there are things that we will hold back, and things that we hold back because because we recognize that to say something would be damaging, or could be, especially if that client's in a highly suggestible state, could make things worse for them.
And misinterpret it because the brain tends to go. I mean, this has happened to me so many times that people ask about their marriage and I'll scan it. And if I think it seems happy, I'll say, I cannot connect to this because it seems fine. I scan it and I try to get validations for what they're experiencing. And then I'll say, yeah, if I connect, yeah, that feels like something isn't right, X, Y, and Z. And inevitably, at the end of the reading, they're like, okay, so I understand. So I'm supposed to get a divorce, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, at no point did I say that. Yeah. And I get why our conscious mind, because I'm human, right, targets that biased confirmation of what we want to hear.
Right.
So in a reading, you actually almost have to approach it really very objectively.
Yeah.
Look at the evidence, have someone else, if you want, look at what you wrote down.
Right.
And see, because you will target what you're looking for, good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've both gotten pretty good at this point. Like, I'm not going to say we can pick out every unstable person that calls for a reading, but
No.
you can hear sometimes a desperation in the voice. And the easiest way to do that is to say, I'm not available for 3 or 4 months. Which, if a person is really like, and I've taken too many of these clients to ever do that again.
Yeah.
Or I had somebody actually drive up to my house once. I really need to see you right now. And I just was like, no, I was eating my lunch. No, you don't. Like, the woman was like on her knees at my gate. I was like, this is not how I work.
That's never going to go well.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I get if something's happened. Now, if I have a client who I've read for years and I know, and they have a loss or they need a mini reading and I can fit it in, I will absolutely do it because I've read them for years. So if they're like, I have a thing in my job or whatever, I have to ask you a question and I can fit them in, I will put them in as right away as I can because I know.
But they're pretty stable.
They're correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So but the emergency readings,
or picking up thing on the
well.
phone, like, I don't like to just make a recording or make a session over text. I mean, I do more than I used to, but
you do sessions over text?
No, like set up an appointment over text.
Oh, okay.
I was like, kind of hear your voice, or sometimes people text me like, I need a reading right now. They won't say their name, they won't say their, and it's just like, and for many of those, I don't even answer.
I don't,
because it's like, if you've probably texted 30 psychics the same thing, and whoever answers you first.
Or you're scamming us, and we're not doing
exactly. So, yeah, so there
I
are,
want to help and heal.
Yeah.
So if it's not my wheelhouse to help you,
Right.
then I'm not going to take it.
and I'm
Period.
not gonna pretend that I can't
No.
either, I mean, I remember I had one, oh, she would have been so easy, but I just could, like, in good conscience, I could not, a woman had called and left a message, and she said, I used to go see Mrs. Blavatsky, and she's dead, and I picked your name, and if you're really a good psychic, you'll know who I am, and you'll call me back.
Say that. You'll know who I am. Yeah, okay.
And I could have called her back because she called me on her cell phone.
Yeah,
on my
but
cell
say my
phone and
Mrs.
left the
blah, blah,
number.
blah.
But I just didn't. I thought, I could have, because I'm not, I couldn't take advantage of that. I could have called her and
Someone
said,
will, and that
I
makes
had the
me
feeling
very
that
upset.
you called me, and and I just
You called me. Yeah, that's the thing with us. We call it like we see it in a
Yeah.
polite way. In a polite way. But I do have, my heart goes out for those who
Yeah.
psychologically need have problems and need help.
Yeah.
But we're not the person for that outside of the normal realm of grief, confusion, which road to take. All of that is obviously in our wheelhouse. But the other things, yeah, there's like a lot of stories I can come up with. But I will tell you, you too, probably. Now that I've been doing it 16 years full time, I do weed out, and I will say I'm not the match for you.
Yeah.
And I also don't read in public venues, sitting at a table or
Right.
at fairs, which I think there's nothing wrong with that. I built up my career,
Yeah,
a
me
strong
too.
foundation
Mhm.
doing that. But that's also where you find a lot of that.
Mhm.
I find a lot less now as the more professional and years have gone on that I've become. But so I had somebody wanting an emergency reading probably 2 months ago, give or take. And then maybe they found me on Instagram. I had the time. I cut the reading, reimbursed them the money, and we were done. And I thought, this is why I don't do it.
Right.
I was shuffling. She wanted cards and it was all, job related.
Mhm.
Shuffling the cards, she could hear them. She's like, those are getting on my nerves. And I'm
Oh,
like,
boy.
you just asked me to, and I have ear things in, I'm shuffling. It's not a Zoom, it
Yeah.
was a call. And I thought, if you're getting upset that I'm shuffling the cards that you want to hear,
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't loud, it was on a hard surface. I said, no. And then it was funny because she had said she was following me on social media and all of this, and you could see that she popped up like an hour before the call as soon
Yeah.
as she spoke with me. And so I don't know how she had said she was following me, but it was so funny because after the call, she was no longer following me. I was like,
Oh,
oh, that's so very good. But I thought, wow, you needed to hear what you wanted to hear, and you're on edge.
Mm.
So our job is really we're highlighting these hard cases, but our job is to help and heal. And we
Yeah.
know that. And we are always saying, I'm healed when you are.
Yeah.
So I feel better when you're feeling better. Trust me.
And I think it might not come across as a psychological instability during a reading, but there are people who are addicted, it seems, to readings.
Yeah. And I don't do that either.
They're going to go
No way.
to, 10 or 12 different people, or wanting to keep. Now, I've never heard a complaint from a spirit person, stop calling for me or stop. But I have had, people who want, can I come back next week? No, you can't come back. Let life play out a little bit. Let some things.
I used to have hard, fast rule. First, I didn't have any when I started my career, and then that started happening. It was the psychic addiction. What should I do on a date? Should I kiss this person and then explicitly tell me everything else? I'm not giving you sexual advice, okay?
Right,
So
right.
we're stopping right there.
Yeah.
And then should I wear this on the date? Should I buy this?
Yeah.
A boardwalk psychic will take advantage of you for that. Go to them. I'm not doing that. But I feel that I don't have as much as I used to. I guess what I'm gonna say is I'd say don't come back for 6 months.
Yeah.
Then don't come back for 3 months. I actually don't do that now. I say, let's wait it out.
Yeah.
Let's let it play out a bit. Now, again, if it's a full hour mediumship reading, play it out longer.
Yeah.
If you just did a mini reading for 20 minutes, okay. So maybe you want a mediumship. That's something different.
Yeah.
But I do say I don't have a hard and fast rule now.
Right.
Let's see how you play it out.
Yeah.
And then we play it by ear.
And often I do the same thing, and often the client will not come back in 3 weeks, because they're kind of on a little bit of a high.
true.
Like, I feel validated. I feel like I know what I'm doing now. I feel a little bit more in control, and how can I expand this feeling or continue this feeling? But they get back into their regular life, and life begins to unfold, and sort of empowerment stays with them, and feels like it gives them a sense of confidence. But yeah, I don't really feel like I have to put people off much either. It's generally just excitement that makes them want to. When can I
Right.
book again?
If someone does say 30 minutes and we're in the full swing and then we end and I don't have time to extend, if they say we only did half an hour, can we do another half an hour
Yeah.
in X, Y, and Z time? That's
Right,
fine.
right,
I'll let
yeah.
them book because we just did only half an hour. That's fine, but I don't tend to do it on the full hour. I have them waited out.
I think we've both had clients who cannot seem to become more and more indecisive
Mm.
and more reliant on a psychic's voice to
Tell them what to do.
make
That's
them
not
feel good
good.
about their decisions, right?
Yeah.
And again, this is something that's nuanced and something that we have to determine, and we may be flawed about it, like that woman with the job interview that I was talking about earlier. I didn't pick up on early enough that
Right.
she was going to crumble the way that she or escalate the way that she did. And so we have to kind of be sometimes very much on the fly, like I gotta shut this down, or I'm not gonna go further with this, or
Absolutely.
I don't think you should call me again. I'm not the psychic for you. But fortunately, nothing really where any of my clients really kind of went around the bend, thankfully.
No, I haven't had that in a long time, but I'm more discerning than I used to be.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you to our listener who sent in that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a very good one. And I guess the follow-up, we would say that if you are looking for a psychic reading, and your mental well-being depends upon getting a certain answer, maybe do a little counseling before that, or be prepared for perhaps not getting that answer. Because you may not, no matter how many times you ask it or how many different ways you ask it, an ethical psychic is going to tell you what he or she sees, and they're not going to flex it so that you don't get upset. I mean, our intention isn't to make you upset, but if you are becoming upset and wanting to, well, let me ask the question this way. Will you tell me something different? Where I've actually said to people, you can keep asking me the same question in as many different ways, but my answer remains the same. And so I think if you're feeling a little fragile about a particular topic, going to a psychic when you're in that heightened state may not, unless you're prepared, unless if you're not validated, you get some relief from, okay, at least now I know, then maybe counseling, maybe a little time, meditation, prayer, whatever your mojo might be, do a little bit of that first, because we're going to tell you what we see for the most part.
In a polite way, though, I
Always
have
in a
to
polite way,
say.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we always love to hear from you guys. We always love to hear your questions. We love to answer your questions because we're both teachers and we're both self-taught psychics and mediums. So we know the fun, unusual, and sometimes emotionally fraught mental states you can be in when you are feeling something intuitively or worried about something emotionally. So we welcome your questions, and you can send them to us. You can email us at info@etherealmaterialpodcast.com. One of these days I'll get that right.
That's why I let you say it every time.
Etherealmaterialpod@gmail. You can DM us on YouTube, I think, right?
Maybe on YouTube.
Probably on
You should
YouTube.
check that out.
On
Instagram
and on
TikTok.
TikTok. You can listen to us. You can leave us fan mail.
Oh yeah, we can't
on
respond. We read it.
Buzzsprout, right?
Respond.
So you can listen to us on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Ethereal Material, and you can watch us on YouTube. Watch our podcast on YouTube at Ethereal Material. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
So keep believing.
Keep questioning.
And keep in touch.